Welcome to the Future Generations Podcast, providing you with the world-changing content necessary to inspire you, your family, and our planet to a life of optimal health potential. We'll help you make the choices that powerfully influence the lives you bring into this world. It's time to strengthen our resolve to do better now and for our future generations with your host, Dr. Stanton Hom.
Okay, welcome to another episode of the Future Generations Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stanton Hom, and this is going to be an awesome episode. I don't know exactly where we're going to go. I think I have a focus, but I have a feeling this conversation could potentially just blossom into a very, very, very big conversation. But I have with me Shelby Thomson, the founder of Unjected, one of my favorite people I've ever interviewed, but also one of my favorite people in the movement. You have a unique ability to take this movement and this truth and this devotion to what's right, and do it in a way that with a lot of smiles, with a lot of grace, with a lot of which I believe I really appreciate all your voice messages to me. Aloha, a lot of aloha,
appreciate you.
Yeah. Coming from the ground floor at Maui, which is a huge thing in not in the media today, but at the same time very much targeting a lot of our friends and people who are talking about what's potentially happening out there. And so if you followed the censorship, you would potentially get keyed into what might be, some of those truths that we should be looking at. I'm hoping to get a little bit more information from that. But Shelby, before that, maybe introducing yourself. I'd love our audience to get reintroduced to you again, and we'll get going.
Yeah, well, thank you for that introduction. That made my heart so warm. And I feel the same way about you and all the truth that you're doing and spreading and with kindness and love. So thank you. And yes, I'm Shelby Thomson. I'm the founder of Unjected, which is the platform for anybody who didn't take the COVID vaccine. So an unvaccinated platform for dating, friendships, community, and even blood and fertility directories. Yeah,
so
we go to the whole level. And so just to touch on that, recently we just actually partnered with the wellness company where Dr. Peter McCullough hangs his hat. And they have totally redone all of our infrastructure. We have a new verification system where people attest to their unvaccination status by affidavit. And you have to state that you understand it's sexual misconduct to lie about your vaccination status to other partners. And so we're really taking it levels deeper. But many of you know me from living here on Maui. I've been blessed to be here for the last over 10 years. I'm originally from Idaho, but I've been enjoying this beautiful island home of mine. And what happened here is literally, it's mind-bending to be honest. Just witnessing the destruction and devastation only just 30 miles away. And it feels like a 9/11 just totally happened, but the country didn't stop for it. It's just us down here.
It's crazy because it looks like nobody stopped for it, and that's why, many of my friends who are like, hey, thank you for posting or reposting, because even the people in the movement aren't posting about it to some degree. And it's an interesting dive into where, some people will like the edge of what they're willing to communicate about or learn about. And for me, I'm really grateful that you brought up that 9/11 analogy, because I just thought it was very odd that it was very much in the same time frame. And then, for me, 9/11 happened when I was 22, and I was a brand new lieutenant in the military.
Wow.
And 3 weeks later, my roommate was deployed. And then over the next, 5 years, maybe the five of us never saw each other because we were always gone. And so it's a gnarly thing, because for you guys where you are, this isn't a military it isn't a military. We don't know exactly what it is per se, but what we do know is what is accepted, right? We do know that it is totally acceptable that this is a wildfire that
Right.
I don't even know what the source is. I don't know, even though I've been
Right.
trying to pay attention to it, that when you look at it, it's like, I've been to Lahaina. Like I don't
Right.
remember Lahaina exactly, but I do know that it's freaking weird, man. Like, it's just like,
It's
for
yeah.
me, it's just like
Yeah. It's
Hawaii
too convenient. Yeah.
wildfire. Like,
Hmm.
anyways, and then like a city on a highly um traveled island,
Yeah.
that's where it's essentially contained, which is
Yeah.
gnarly. It's just these weird logical things that you're just like, what happened, And so,
I think that was part of the plan, because if we believe in, maybe we're probably on the same page. If, there is many people, even that agreed with us on the vaccine stuff, that are saying to me, like, you're crazy for even contemplating this as a fire, not anything but a fire. And it's, when you just combine so many of the elements at once, and then look at the bigger picture, it's, Hawaii is been told to be a heart chakra of the planet. It's so powerful, the energy here, and we're the most isolated uh, piece of land anywhere in the whole entire world. We're 2,000 miles from any other piece of land in every direction. And so we're quite a little petri dish out here. And Hawaii has already been stolen. If you know about the history of Hawaii, it was
yeah.
illegally annexed, and it's never gone through the proper channels of being a state. The only reason I get to be blessed to live here is because, unfortunately it was taken from the Hawaiian people. It's been pillaged before. And you know we see these globalists, and they have this symbolism, and they do things right in front of your face. And Josh Green had it was, I think, in January, had done a in Maui on the west side. They did a smart cities summit.
Yeah.
3 weeks before the fire, he was in the UN, talking to the WEF about how Hawaii was going to usher in smart city, and be energy neutral. And then it's just it's almost sick how many convenient details there are, because then
Hmm.
he signs proclamations in July, 3 weeks before the fire, to revoke the Sunshine Law, which in Hawaii is to discuss all public land development out in the open. So he revoked that, and he also signed an emergency proclamation that gives him carte blanche ability to do whatever he wants with the land if there was a natural disaster. How much more obvious can it be? It's kind of like the passport that they found from the hijacker on the sidewalk. Like,
Hmm.
guys, it's
Hmm.
just, it's so in your face. And then all of the leaders were off island the night of the fire. The mayor claims he didn't know anything about it for 12 hours. And, we have the most robust alarm system in the whole entire country, and it's one of the world, actually. It's the tsunami siren system, but it's used for, even on their website, they state, for lava, terrorist attacks, wildfires. And so there was no reason for the course of 6 hours or more that they never sounded the alarm. And that was thousands of people without any warning, children in their homes, because school was not in that day. Parents were at work. Uh, it's just like, and then after, if we just bypass the negligence of the origins of the fire, the response, it's just been shocking. They've built a 12-mile fence around Lahaina. So it is literally a construction grade fence that is tarped off. They say this is for
Your safety.
dangerous material. When has a wildfire been so dangerous that you can't go into the area once it's stopped burning? Homeowners are arrested for trying to get to their properties. No fly zone, no drones. FBI agents want every 100 yards. The things that I've witnessed with my eyes, even just yesterday, I went down by the forensic facility, and there was, at the time, 6 mats and containers sectioned off by tactical command police guard, that are all refrigerated containers that we believe have bodies in there.
Wow.
And there were 9. And there's just no transparency. They've dropped the victim count. And I know I'm just kind of rambling,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's
it's
okay.
just shocking to, when all of these details would start like just coming forward, you'd have to have I think an immense level of cognitive dissonance to say that this was just a wildfire.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
to maybe recap some of what you said, or maybe to have maybe more direct questions, it's crazy to think that there seems to be a media blackout, and it seems to also, when there is something that's said about it, it's kind of the same
Yeah.
recipe, where it's just a parroting of obviously what they want you to believe about it.
Yeah.
And then when you get to like the ground level, like you start to hear from the people, and you start to hear about incompetency on one end, but maybe on the back end of that, which is what I believed the entire time, just being involved here in San Diego, especially during all the craziness of the last 3 years, is sure, maybe on the level, there's on the surface level, there's incompetency.
Right.
And then on the back level, and the deeper level and the more nefarious level, which I believe we have a responsibility to go, like we have a responsibility to go
Yeah.
there. That, the the county supervisor at the time for San Diego was Nathan Fletcher, and you search Nathan Fletcher World Economic Forum, you're like, ooh, young leader in the World Economic Forum, weird, right? And
Isn't
then
that convenient?
you look at one of the other supervisors, obviously, in the conventional two-party system, they're more on the liberal end. There's another one who's up for re-election this year, and she is a known Soros person, right? And you're just like, this is San Diego, like
Mm,
the San Diego County, Southern California. We go to the beach. We'd love to
right.
just chill out and be, we love to surf, and we're the better part of Southern California because we're much more reasonable. We're not LA, and those two, and then there's a third supervisor who's just bought into them, and then there's two more conservative supervisors that are just sold out, and
Right.
and then you're just like, wait a minute, okay, so the only acceptable narrative is blank, right? And
Right.
the only surface level opposition to that is incompetence, which
Yep.
obviously is true. But
Yep.
if you look a little bit deeper, how convenient, right? How convenient
Right.
that Maui is going to be a smart island. How
Right.
convenient that all of these different pieces of legislation are either overturned or drafted. And if it's not true, why don't we have transparency and say something about that, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and so so at the ground level, what do people believe mostly? I would say, just help me.
So
It's a
it's
fire. It's
so
a tragedy.
split.
Yeah.
Everyone, of course, we all believe it's a terrible tragedy, but I would say half of the population is, in complete. And well, and what we know about the grieving process is what denial is the first stage,
Yeah,
right?
of
And
course.
I think a lot of people are going through an immense denial that, well, and we already saw this before with the vaccine agenda, that there's no way that the government would purposefully murder you. And if people, if people, unfortunately, if they knew that, they'd probably jump off buildings if they knew how evil that these people were.
I know.
And, we do have a right to actually shine light onto the darkness because it scurries away when we do that.
Hmm.
And, it's ignorance can be bliss, and it would be so much more blissful to not know about this evil, but we do know about it. And so for half of us, I feel like we're just like screaming like from this spiritual place, like, don't you see like that this was the petri dish and a flagship place for them to breed nefarious action. And, they chose 8/8. That's a symbolic day in astrology. We know these people love to use astrology on their side. Revelations 8:8, that Bible verse in particular, I implore everyone to look at it. It's very interesting. It's about how fire was cast all the way to the sea. I mean, it just goes on and on. And I, I just, I do feel that most of us think that something nefarious happened, but there's that societal pushback, just the same, that psychology that they throw into it, that you're a crazy person if you want to, to question this narrative about the fire or its, uh, you know, uh, the rescue afterwards. And Josh Green has already been on TV. If you follow social media, you're just crazy. This isn't reliable sources of news. And we know why he says that, obviously.
Right.
But it just feels like I think people struggle to speak out because they're worried about being flagged just as a crazy person. And it's like, we
Absolutely.
need your voice right now. We need it.
So for the people who are more just attuned to the fact that there are these nefarious players, there are these evil players, what would you say are the primary perspectives that you feel are the most important to pay attention to right now and give our attention to?
Oh, well, I guess it depends on, I don't know what their intent, we all talk about the smart city a lot, but I almost wonder if it's that's a cover for something else too, if we talk about the history of Hawaii and
Thank you.
being stolen, the only reason we're here is because of US military occupation. And these military leases that were signed by Roosevelt are coming to an end. Does that have any implication? I don't know, but supposedly Pearl Harbor is supposed to be disassembling and moving away from Hawaii. That's supposedly supposed to happen. So, but that would never be allowed in America. We have to have a military installment here because
Sure.
this is the closest stop to Asia. So, are they trying to just maybe do this attack so they can now have this whole west side of the island to use as a new sort of military base?
Wow.
I don't know. I don't want to say that. Maybe is this like a China war thing? I don't know. Maybe that's too far reaching, but it seems like it could be a possibility. And but the smart city they're kind of putting in our face. So, but they're going to spray the land with soil tack, which is something that I've been telling everybody about, which is I think this is where it can really point to the nefarious action because soil tack was created for war games in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's a DoD, basically nanotechnology glue, sealant adhesive that is supposed to absorb radiation off of the ground.
Hmm.
Which is that's like wow, that's a big statement anyways, but it's never been used for fire. You're not supposed to use it near water, and everywhere that they've ever put it, the ground has become inhabitable. Uh, so, they're about to go spray this all over West Maui, all over ancient burial grounds, all over this land. Is this just maybe the biggest land grab in history? Maybe. And I mean, I dare I say that they went after children because they were the inheritors of the land. I don't, I pray not. I pray not. But it's just, that piece of land was worth billions of dollars, billions.
Yeah.
It's just pristine. And you can't build that history over again. And, just like other times in history where they erase the old to try to rewrite their new, those buildings were all protected under historical acts. And now that they're destroyed, what does that mean? And now that he gave himself the ability to do whatever he wants with the land, with FEMA on his side, the environmental poison agency, as I call them, spraying the ground, they're all just working hand in hand to just it's just like a highway robbery, just but in the open, in my opinion.
It's it's I think that's an important factor that just going back to the multi-generational ancestral
Yeah.
aspect of Hawaii itself and how it's very clear, right? If you've done any studying in natural health and self-healing over the last, say 2 decades, then you know that there is this push, right? That these biohackers, that these wellness influencers will promulgate something
Yeah.
that is actually ancestral, that is
Yeah.
actually something
Yeah.
that we found as a people as essential, very keyword, essential, um, that becomes the thing that they sell. It becomes the thing that they're known
Trendy.
for. You're the breathwork person. You're the bone
Yeah.
broth person. You're the person that, like you can become totally like an influencer, quote, if you do things like this, right? And you
Yeah.
look at this, like, I think that metaphor is really, really important because in that space, you could be this brand, this modern influencer who's
Yeah.
actually just doing something that potentially was free in the
Right.
past, that was totally ancient, that was totally a part of, ancestral human, whatever you want to call it, culture.
Hmm. Hmm.
And never have we seen it, because Hawaii is a state, right? Air
Yeah.
quotes. And Hawaii is, if you go to Hawaii, we went to Maui's the first first island that I went to, because I was just like dying to go to Hawaii, and I didn't get
Right.
to go till after I got out of the military. And Maui's the first place that I went to, so Lahaina and Kihei, and
Yeah.
like the areas I will never forget going, because if you're Asian and you're from Southern California, it's one thing, and then you go to Hawaii and you're like, oh, like I feel like I'm not from here, but I feel like I'm from here for some,
Right.
and
Yeah,
it's actually
totally.
just a vibe, right?
Yeah.
It's the aloha like culture that it breaks your heart, right? It
Yeah.
breaks your heart because in the end, I never even put that together. I never even put that together, what you said about maybe that's why they went after the children. That they're essentially those who would be in a lineage, um, to inherit many of these lands, and largely, I mean, I think that metaphor stands and holds true too, right? It's the reason why.
And that's how they got that land, because it was passed to them and to them and to them. And for just literally thousands of years, this land is generational Hawaiian land. And so, it's quite literally like where does it go now? What
Right.
happens to it now? And that's definitely, I think if they can pull something off like this here, they're using it as a test and a launching pad, and we know that they're capable of doing these things, but they also want to be precise and they want to
Yeah.
be calculated, so they practice. And is that what they did in Paradise City? Maybe. Is that why our beachfront properties just perfectly have little laser lines around them? Maybe they got good at it. It seems like it seems like they're
Wait, can you describe
practicing.
that? Describe that to me.
So I mean, Lahaina is mostly obliterated, but
Yeah.
there's also some really precarious pictures out there where you go, why did just the Canadian owned beachfront properties not burn right there, like in a perfect line? And then you go, why did the one hotel not burn and its grass is green, 100% green palm trees, but everything around it is obliterated? And you
Yeah.
just go, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
And it's like, they drained the water out of the fire hydrants, so the firemen were left empty handed. So how did the fire go out anyways if nobody was fighting it?
Mm.
That's one question I have too. And then let alone the destruction of what we see is like, a line around something and then melted cars. And
Yeah.
things get hot. I understand aluminum, the melting point of aluminum isn't even that hot, but like glass,
Yeah.
steel,
Yeah.
steel. I have a friend that had a steel workshop building that he actually did art and other things in, and it's melted to the ground. I mean, does that happen? And what I mean, scratch your head, but it seems like it burned so hot.
Are there engineers, are there firefighters, are there public servants today who are brave enough to speak out at this point? I mean, it's crazy because we are watching maybe this year more than previous years when 9/11 rolled around. I saw more people communicate about and share messages about not only that, I mean, it's like just common knowledge that 9/11 wasn't what it was, right?
Right.
Second, that there are nefarious players, and then you watch Zeitgeist, you watch any of these documentaries where these
Mm-hmm.
people are coming out and they're speaking about the laws of physics that have
Right.
been completely violated as a result of it. Are there anybody that you've seen today that have spoken out with any sort of valid um, information to that regard yet? Or are these
So,
all just
well, so I mean, in our truth and freedom community, I guess I need to dive deeper for people's credentials, but I feel like the consensus is, with this information that's coming out, that this is like these temperatures of these metals
yes?
compared to like
Yeah.
what we see with asphalt, like aluminum being melted on asphalt is also a strange anomaly because the melting point of aluminum is much higher than asphalt. So shouldn't the asphalt also be melted as well? There's just like so many weird questions. And then oh gosh, I'm losing my train of thought. But some people I think are too, they're still too scared. Like I think that even if they thought they were a whistleblower, like it wouldn't matter because like it would just ruin their personal reputation, or
Hmm.
they wouldn't be able to live here anymore comfortably. I think a lot of people feel that way because it's so small and they're afraid of being recognized. And I mean, I I guess I understand. Like I've had some people recognize me from these last videos I've done talking about the children that
Yeah.
went like viral. And when you live on a small island, that can kind of freak you out. But
Hmm.
I've seen that publicly they're already saying that the like firemen, or there's a certain group of emergency officials that are not going to do any interviews.
Yeah.
Which, when does that ever happen?
Yeah.
Usually you hear on the ground stories of like what happened. And like there's kind of seems like there's this gag order going around
Hmm.
for everybody just to just keep quiet of whatever this is.
So let's talk a little bit about let's talk about the kids because I just I there's a couple accounts that I have been following, since 2020 that I really 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 appreciated at the time, especially when it was time of the election, especially when we, just started to see that it was really
Yeah.
hard to see clearly.
Yeah.
And one account is putting out all the information that is basically saying, "Hey, this is all debunked. This is all not true." And I just watched a video just before this because I wanted to just be
Yeah.
able to feel that other side. And
Yeah.
it was just like, there are no kids missing. And it was just like, I've lived here for this long and everybody knows everybody and there's no kids missing. And you're like, I don't know a
Right.
single person
Right.
that's kids missing. I'm like, so
Right.
zero. So zero
Right.
kids are missing. So it's like that's what drives me out. It's like
It's
100%
oh,
effective, 100% efficacy. You
right.
will live forever if
Right.
you take this thing in your arm and just, change all of your DNA. But
Yeah. Yeah.
100%,
Right.
and it's 100% effective, and it's totally safe, no injuries, not
Right.
one possible side effect that could be possibly problematic.
Right. Right.
And this influencer is just pushing this narrative.
I think I know who it is
Yeah,
that
I
you're
bet
talking
you do,
about.
and I just
Uh,
don't want to be, you probably know who it is, but
she lives on Oahu, and
okay.
she's publicly called me out for
Okay.
asking questions about the children.
Yeah.
It's Samantha Erickson, because she has a large following, and I've respected her and I've honored her opinion in the past, like you said, and lots of love and light to her. And I think we're all able to have open debate and discourse, but she is being a little disrespectful because she's kind of saying that like I'm a lunatic because I'm just asking questions.
Yeah.
And what happened is the children were kept home from school that day. It was supposed to be the first day of school, and they called school out because of the wind and the power. So Kids were home. We know that. It's a fact.
They called
And
kids out of school for wind and power.
yes,
When does that happen?
right.
Just
Well,
curious.
so
Just
exactly, it
curious.
does. It doesn't really
I'm
happen.
not an island
It
person.
it doesn't happen often. But, I think since it was being the first day of school, they just said, oh, we'll just another extra day of summer. Let's just try tomorrow. So the kids didn't even go to school, to my best knowledge. They just were called out completely. They just were told to stay home. And on the island, even if there is a power outage, parents go to work. That's still typical, like, because they can do cash transactions. Like, we don't always have to have a card machine. Like, we can still run and do things. We're used to living on a crappy electricity grid. And so parents were at work in downtown Lahaina. Once they start realizing there's a fire, they go to leave. Every exit is blocked.
Yeah.
And I know this because my mom worked, I personally lived in off of Front Street, worked off of Front Street for 5 years. She still worked there. And so she was working off of Front Street the day of the fire. I actually ended up, was trying to call her so many times. I felt like something was wrong. And I was hearing reports of smoke and I was hearing weird reports. And so I was trying to get a hold of her. When she finally went to leave for work, there was a police barricade right at the exit.
Yeah.
She goes to, they direct her like a parade to another exit, another exit, another exit. How many parents did that happen to that were frantically trying to get back to their children? And like I saw a video the other day with a woman crying, saying that she personally knows a mother who lost five of her children, all of her children. So and then I've heard people finding children in car seats and cribs. And you can actually sit there and say that for a fact there's no children, but it's just pure ignorance,
Yeah.
and you're not doing any dignity to the actual victims. And I pray, why would I want to push a narrative like that? I'm a mother. I'm disgusted and horrified, but I want to ask questions because these are children of the world that we need to know. And first, what happened was the DOE released a statement saying it was like 2 weeks post fire, there was 2,025 children unaccounted for.
Yeah.
And they didn't know if they had moved off island or went to a new school or just haven't re-enrolled. And then they updated it to 1,700. And then I want to say just a couple days ago, it's still now standing at 500. And I feel, she especially is pushing this narrative that they're at home and they're resting and they're getting solace. And I would totally commend that. And if I went through that experience, I would never put my child in school again. Like I get it and I respect it. But do you have a legal obligation to come forward and say, I'm alive. My child is alive. We are accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. When in the history of ever have we not been concerned about where if somebody's just unaccounted for, we'll just believe they're safe and well and just accept that? It's like we should ask a question about the well-being of children. It's like, and I mean they do. They're trying to like debunk this, like, and I'm not hearing tons of reports of parents that are like screaming from the rooftops about their children. And I can confirm that, which is also though, did the whole family perish? Let's just ask a real question. Did the whole family perish? Are there no parents to ask the questions? What about all of the undocumented citizens? We had so many Filipinos and Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, all this community that was completely undocumented that would never have been reported in a census because they're terrified of losing and their homes and getting deported. So what about all those thousands of people? There's I think a level of cognitive dissonance and ignorance just for the act, and I get it, because why would you want to believe that they are capable of doing this evil? It's so hard to put your head around, but and it'll leave you laying up in your bed at night thinking about it. And that's just kind of the consequence for being in this truth community, is like we know what we know, but like by not doing justice and by telling other people that they're spreading ignorant lies, like I think you just need to, I think, especially, her or other people that are doing this, if she's not the only one, like just ask questions. That's like her saying like she knew for a fact that the vaccine was 100% safe and effective. And it's like, we're only at 45 days into this. And A lot's going to be revealed.
Well, I mean, let's just, what if it was 500?
You're right.
What if it was 500? If it was 500, the population of Lahaina, I mean, is like, I don't know, I'm looking at a website right now, 12,000,
Right.
which is from 2010, so it's probably more than that.
Hmm.
Like,
Well, so the latest census was, I think, 13,200
yeah.
in 2020.
So
Yeah.
so that's, you know,
For
4% of the population.
documented people. So
Right. Right.
I could say there could be 10,000, there could be 10,000 undocumented people there
Easily,
easily.
right? And
Easily.
so that's, that could be, if that 500 number is correct, that's still 4%, 4% of the population. Like, so
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
don't talk about them. Just don't.
Right.
And
Right.
so
Just
why did it go from 2000 to 500, right?
and I want to
And
know what, like, where did those numbers come from? Are you just kind of making them up? Like,
right.
there's just also kind of, they're just throwing them into different
Hmm.
categories, like just
Yeah.
shuffling numbers around.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, and they built this fence around Lahaina. I've been calling it a riot fence
Hmm.
because I think if people knew how many how many people were involved in this tragedy, I think that they would be rioting
Yeah.
because the sirens did not go off, and that was on purpose.
Oh, I want to ask you about something that, so I would say Talia Cruz, Talia like it is, that Shine Don't Stop Shanda, I believe
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
really cool account. Matt Roski at Cultivate Elevate has been putting out a
yeah,
lot of information about, specifically about direct energy weapons.
yeah.
And I don't know if you know about this, but I am intrigued by this. And I'm
I
intrigued by this
dove I
because,
dove deep.
okay, I would love to know a little bit about this because I feel that what your entire prelude into what we're about to talk about, to even talk about 9/11, right? Because 9/11 was New York City,
Right.
9/11 was an inside job, 9/11
Yeah.
was, um, every level of darkness that you could ever imagine, the Patriot Act. Uh, I remember very distinctly, um, traveling, every time I came home, the single best thing that would ever happen was when I came home and I would fly back to wherever I was going,
Hmm.
especially West Point. Um, my parents and my sister would walk me to the gate.
Right.
They'd walk me to the gate. My sister would
The old
hide.
time
She
movies.
would hide me a note somewhere in my backpack, and I would find it, and I just loved reading it, right?
Yeah.
And that's just a little personal story about something that is so inconsequential today, because we will gladly line up for
Hmm.
an x-ray, pat down by
Take
TSA.
off your shoes.
We'll do
Yeah.
everything we can to get a TSA pre-check, because somehow that
Yep.
magically doesn't get you go through the line. Like, there's all sorts of weird shit that we will just do just to get out of the tyranny that was
Yeah.
marched in after
Right.
a single day, in a single moment in history.
Right.
And here is this other thing that happened in a sleepy city, well, it's actually pretty lively, right? Lahaina is pretty
Yeah.
lively. Um, but literally 2 million, no, 2,000, you said 2,000 miles in any direction. There's
Yep.
nothing surrounding Hawaii, and they can literally launch this thing. And it made me feel, where are we safe? Where
Not
would they not do
not many
this, right?
places.
And
No.
so let's go down that road, if you don't mind. I would love to do
Well,
that.
and a lot of people don't realize about this direct energy weapon conversation is, the memes or whatever. Oh, space lasers, and it's like, you guys, there's a direct energy weapon that is based in our telescope on Haleakala. It's on the record for the Air Force and the Space Force. It's called the Amos facility. It's the Thor weaponry. It only exists here in Maui and in Nevada. You can look it up. I can literally see it from my window right now. And it lives on the top of the mountain. And we have a direct energy weapon here on island. We also have one of the most advanced supercomputers in the world here on island. It wouldn't even actually have to be man operated. This is literally a computer algorithm that could do it by itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Take it a next step further. I think Shonda was the one who pointed this out, was the pilot logs for 8.8 have been mostly scrubbed. Why is that? We
Wow.
do know that direct energy weapons can be mounted on top of Boeing airplanes, on the nose of Boeing airplane. So were pilots coming into Maui to land and they were seeing planes that were, or a plane that was not coming up on the radar, and were they reporting it to the tower and saying, "Hey tower, I have a plane that I'm seeing in my radar. Can you please let me know why it's not coming up? Am I safe to land?" You know, are those the kind of reports that they're deleting, or were they seeing something coming from Haleakala? Um, I mean, we literally have a direct energy weapon system here. And so I think that I feel like we should do a FOIA request and find out where the coordinates of everything is. I don't think they'll probably tell us, but we might as well try. And you know, if you want to take it like to the where the globalists do, they put it in our face.
Yeah.
And you know, we Simpsons, they already called it with the blue, but also you know, we see that a lot of blue things didn't burn in Lahaina. And what is this frequency color of blue? It's 66.6.
Mm.
These lasers are very advanced. You know, they can program them to do whatever they want. It's conveniently the color of UN blue, kind of like this color behind me, to be honest.
Wow.
And you know, why didn't all it's just like, and then FEMA has an operation called Operation Blue Roof, where they save houses by tarping them in blue roofs.
Wow.
There's also a direct energy company that they work together, called Blue Halo. I think that's another interesting
Mm-hmm.
Project Blue Beam. There's something to be said about this blue theme that they're putting out. And you know, I've had personal graphic videos given to me that shows, I mean, I'm not a forensic specialist, but I believe it looks completely nefarious when I see these victims, and the way that they are. It doesn't seem like this would be from a regular fire.
Yeah.
And you know, people are reporting the same thing, that you know, cats are dead on all fours, standing up with their hair not burned off, but just dead, frozen like statues. And people were frozen in place, like calcified, like Pompeii. And does that happen in a fire?
Mm-hmm.
Why are people stuck in their cars? Why couldn't they get out? Why couldn't they get out of their vehicles? Wouldn't you have time to escape burning vehicle? These questions beg to be asked, and I think that's why they sealed off the place and there was a media blackout and no reporters, no one was let in, because those kind of questions would be asked
Mm-hmm.
because they're so obvious. It's like, how does that happen? It's crazy.
It's And so the technology of a direct energy weapon essentially would be a possible cause
I
to
think
that
it's
outcome.
I think it's absolutely possible. I think it's not something we should completely ignore,
And
because
essentially they're
you know,
they're lasers.
yeah, and you can't see them either.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
That's what I was
people
gonna say.
post. I've
Yeah.
seen people post in the freedom community, and have corrected them, like, stay vigilant, because you know, you're posting a picture of SpaceX launch or something, and it's like,
Mhm.
it wouldn't look like that. It's literally invisible.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just would start, and just ignite.
Well, I mean, for those of you who are listening to the podcast and have gone um, through our top 10, which we just re-released, if you go back to the episode with Chris Crutchfield, 6-7 podcast, he went through all of the technology that has been around since like the early 70s that are not just mind control devices, but that are similar invisible technology that can be directed at sometimes individuals, not just
Yeah.
areas, that
Hmm.
can shape not only behavior but also just like kill people. Like it's
Yeah.
gnarly to think
Targeted. Yeah,
that
they're so
that is something
precise.
that's not out of the realm of possibility. And let's just why are we talking about this? We're talking about this because we moved our family to Escondido, Northeast County, San Diego, and we moved here because we wanted to get out of the lion's den. We didn't know that San Diego was going to become what it became, and then all of a sudden now it's just like San Francisco, just like LA, homeless capital of the world, and it is just flooded, right, with
Mm,
dark
energy.
just energy, but also just
Mhm.
people, right?
Yeah.
People, the leaders who are public servants, air quotes, um,
Hmm. Yeah.
totally just either incompetent and sold out, or dark player, right?
Yep.
You come up to a small city like Northeast County, San Diego, and you start to see these other cities, and you start to meet some of these mayors, right? And not, well, maybe the county supervisor, we'll see, right? We'll see how this plays out. He may be, he may not be, but you meet these small town mayors, and they are a little bit open, right? Because of what we've done here in San Diego over the last 3 years is we've as a great community like been able to promote a level of truth that has kind of influenced a lot of these people of influence at
Awesome.
the smaller level,
Yeah.
that whether you're in California, whether you're in Maui, whether you're in Texas, whether you're in Florida, if you aren't building your own little safe haven, right? If
Yeah.
you aren't prepping to a certain degree, if you don't have food, if you don't have all the things that are going to help you create better sovereignty in your own world for you and your family, that's one thing. But if you aren't building, maybe proactively, maybe preventatively, relationships with people that actually could affect policy when all this crazy stuff goes around, because I texted I texted some of these individuals because I started to meet them,
Yeah.
and I was just like, hey, smart cities, tell me what you think. And they're like, what's that? I'm like, oh, okay, let's talk about
Whoa.
it. So then I was getting text messages about, hey, what do you think about this legislation? What do you think about this? I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
none of it, bro. Like all of it, let's just skip to the end. And it all points towards, well, I was saying back then, 24-hour surveillance and social credit system, which I still agree.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe it's just like this total land. Maybe it's like these invisible laser beams to blow up your
Right.
city, to then land grab,
Yeah.
ancestral lands, destroy multi, thousands generations of people, and implant blank, right? Whether it's a smart city on the facade, or if it's, furthering of World Economic Forum stuff. Like that sounds like a movie, but actually it's not that far fetched
Yeah.
at this
The
stage.
science fiction is real life now.
It's crazy.
And it's probably just the blanket, like all these things just
Yeah.
probably add up to what? The depopulation agenda,
Yeah.
really,
Hmm.
just to make less people, make us depressed, make us lonely, make us reproduce less, um, suicides, illness, land grabs, disaster capitalism, murder. It's all just to, clear us out of the way. We're just like little ants in the exterminator,
So,
basically.
so without getting too depressing, right?
Yeah.
Do you have 5 minutes?
Yeah, I got five.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do Can you tell us, because I have a feeling I have not paid attention in the last week. I have a feeling that September 11th in the event that you were at
Yeah.
was something to be talked about, something remarkable, hopefully something very aloha. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about what's spurring on the island.
Yeah. Well, it it felt like there's this whole population that's grieving and they're in this trauma and they're in this fight or flight. And so I didn't and as collective, we don't want to take from them, but we also understand that they're not seeing things clearly right now because of that adrenaline and
Mhm.
because of that place that they're in. You're not able to see those things until you are able to, have your parasympathesis down and you're able to be calm. And then you start realizing what's happened to you. And there's still not even water over there. So can these people
That's crazy.
understand a direct energy attack if they are looking for water? No. So let's, we got to keep things in perspective. And so it was just trying to hold solidarity and say, when you're ready to come to this moment and stand with us and say, we don't want to have the land stolen, and you deserve to have it back, quite honestly. We're here for you, and we just want to support you and advocate for that. But just know that, like, there isn't also time to waste, and we're so sorry that you can't take this time to grieve, because you deserve it. And it's just a travesty. But it's like, as everyone's crying and grieving their homes and their loved ones, the evil people are like laughing, as like, oh, they're not watching us while we're stealing the land. And it's just, when I see it from this side, my family is safe and my home is safe, and I'm not in that fight or flight, so I'm looking at it from a different lens. And so I'm just trying to bring awareness to maybe people who haven't seen it yet. And we did have a nice turnout. It was about about 100 people or more, and it did start the cascade effect of more people. There's already been a few more events since then, so that was my hope. I never wanted to they always put this like savior complex, like, on
Hmm.
white people, like in
Hmm.
Hawaii, like. And it's like, I don't want to help people who don't want to be helped, but I do understand that maybe they don't know what's happening yet. And so I wanted somebody else to take the lead, and it seems like that's what's going on. And I'm grateful, and I'm just trying to amplify those people who are just telling the truth. And um but yeah, we chose 9/11 because exactly what we talked about here today, just
Hmm.
cover-ups and lies and uh quite frankly, domestic terrorism. Yeah.
It's I think I've said this for the past 3.5 years, that it's like we shared in this episode. It's either on the surface, which is totally uncalled for and unacceptable, just blank incompetence, and a lot of lives were lost, and a lot of resources were totally just the trajectory of one of the most sacred sacred lands in the
Yeah.
world. The trajectory is
Yeah.
completely changed for all time. And I don't even want to like research, what'd you call it, soil tack.
Yeah, soil
I don't want
tack.
to research that yet.
Mm,
But on the deeper end, I think it behooves us to pay really close attention to what is possible.
yeah.
And it's not to fearmonger, and it's not
No.
to promulgate, any sorts of like unfounded conspiracies. It's to recognize that, like, when you do like, did you know about direct energy weapons before?
I've heard of them, but
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about them being on island
So
or
you
any of
didn't
this.
know that you could see one
Until
outside your
I
window.
started diving deeper, I was like, whoa, this is worse than I imagined.
So I think that's really important, because like you said, and like we have said, and like many of the mothers in our movement for health freedom have said,
Yeah.
just asking,
Yeah.
just asking.
And
And
oh, go ahead.
go ahead, I'll let you close.
I was just gonna say, if they, we can, and we talked about so much darkness, and but yes, can they pull off things like this, and do they experiment, and do they stage their plans? They do, but on the paradox of that, we have a really special opportunity to lift the veil even more.
Yeah.
Even more people are seeing through the plan, which is what they don't want. And we can also use this as a staging point for freedom too. If we can
Love it.
we can use this as an example and a template for others to say, if they can do this on our little island, this is also how we can do this as a people, to say, we're not going to be mass murdered anymore, and we don't appreciate
Yeah.
that. And we, I just, stay objective, everybody. I ask questions. And um actually, I'll drop this too. I actually co-authored a book called Burn Back Better. And this is all about the Lahaina fire. It's
Wow.
on pre-order. You can find it at burnbackbetterbook.com. And this is going to probably be the first of many volumes as this progresses and we learn. But this is a start of the dissertation of testimonies and evidence and
Wow.
trying to be as objective as possible and asking questions on every level of the board of saying what happened here and where do we go from here. And burn back better is not just about Hawaii or Canada or
Yeah.
all these Greece, all these places. They are burning the world.
Yeah.
And it's terrorism. So I definitely just want to leave you guys with that too, to check that out. And as it grows, we'll keep adding to it.
Shelby, that's awesome. I know you got to go be with your kids. I got to
Thanks.
be with mine. I'm very grateful for your time. I
Grateful
believe
for
that
your
this
time.
perspective is a really important one because, I mean, I followed you from the very moment that you moved onto the scene. And I believe that your ability to kind of look at things objectively, to look at things with a clearer nervous system is
Thanks.
something that I hope that people are able to drop into. I really do,
Thanks.
because in the end, they're questions that many of us should have coming to the surface, regardless of what part of the world that you're in, because
Yeah.
this is one of those moments as a veteran, as of somebody who's been in combat, that you always want good situational awareness. You always want to
Yeah.
understand what we call op tempo, and you always want to understand like that the strategy
Yeah.
of the movement and the strategy of the opposition must be met
Yes.
with a similar vibration, or else we will
The
fall.
art of war,
That's
you'd rather
exactly.
be the
Yeah.
gardener,
Yeah.
or what is it, the warrior in the garden than the
Mhm.
gardener in the war, you know?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're great. I go with your
Really
kids.
appreciate you. Thank you so much for all of your time
Of
and
course.
lots of aloha.
Same to you.
Thanks. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of the Future Generations podcast. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. For more resources based on today's episode, as well as more ways to inspire a brighter future for you and your family, visit us at thefuturegen.com. That's all available exclusively on thefuturegen.com.